Welcome back. A few weeks ago, President Trump picked Senator JD Vance as his running mate. Personally, I thought this was a great choice. Senator Vance is an excellent communicator who's honestly committed to the America First principles of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. There were many in the Jewish community who pointed to Vance's vote against the aid package to Israel a few months ago during the war as a problematic sign. But as we'll see in a moment, this is a misguided and incomplete understanding of Senator Vance's position. We now go to a video produced by our good friends over at the Israel Guys. So the Israel Guys are a group of young Christians who cover news from Israel on their popular Israel Guys YouTube and Rumble channels. Go subscribe. They post new videos almost every day of the week and are an excellent source of updated and accurate information and analysis. Just after President Trump picked Vance as his running mate, the Israel Guys put out a great video diving into his position on Israel. Have a look.
The Republican National Convention kicked off strong yesterday with former President Trump finally announcing his pick for vice president with JD Vance. Who is JD Vance and what is his stance on Israel and their relationship with America? We're going to break all that down today. Some of these answers may just surprise you. I'm Ben, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome back to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. So the RNC kicked off really strong yesterday on Monday, with Trump finally announcing his pick for vice president, his pick to join his ticket, his bid for the White House as vice president, and his official pick was one of the senators from Ohio, JD Vance. JD Vance is, I believe, a rising star in the Republican Party here in America and the conservative circles here in America. In a way, it seems like he's separating himself from the establishment, from the swamp in Washington, D.C., and is not afraid to stand alone where he thinks it's right to do so. He's a very back-to-the-people kind of politician in a seemingly honest kind of a way. He's very America First oriented, meaning he wants to prioritize fixing America's problems before sending money and troops all over the world to fight other countries' wars. Naturally, that means being in that crowd, in that camp. He's, opposed to America sending unlimited money to Ukraine, sending, large amounts of military equipment to Ukraine. And one would think that being in that America First, opposed to America funding foreign wars, he would also be opposed to America supporting Israel as well. And the interesting thing is he's actually not. JD Vance makes the case that America should support Israel, but from an America First position. And honestly, this is really rare. You hardly ever see this at all. And it's really, really cool, in my opinion. In a speech he did recently on foreign policy, he had this to say.
A big part of the reason why Americans care about Israel is because we are still the largest Christian majority country in the world, which means that a majority of citizens of this country think that their savior, and I count myself a Christian, was born, died, and resurrected in that narrow little strip of territory off the Mediterranean. The idea that there is ever going to be an American foreign policy that doesn't care a lot about that slice of the world is preposterous because of who Americans are.
Honestly, this is really, really amazing stuff because, yes, of course, Israel has interest in supporting Israel because they're holding the line for our way of life in a very, very dark corner of the globe. Also, yes, America has interest in supporting Israel because we gain tremendous amounts of value in shared intelligence. Also, yes, America has interest in supporting Israel because our military gets a constantly updated handbook on modern tactics based on Israel's experience on the cutting edge of modern warfare. And yes, America has interest in supporting Israel because we get access to brand new breakthrough military technology that keeps us one step ahead of the bad actors on the world stage. But more than all of that, as JD said, we have interest in supporting Israel because we are still a Christian nation. And as Christians, we have a mandate to support and defend the nation of Israel. It's incredible to see someone in Washington who finally gets this, and not only gets it, who is willing to recognize it publicly on a political stage. And for the rest of you who also get this as well, and who want to support the nation of Israel in a tangible way, did you know that since October 7th, 600 IDF soldiers have sacrificed their lives defending Israel from the evil forces of Hamas and Hezbollah? Their families are shattered, their wives are now widows, and their children are left without fathers. Think of Hadass Lowenstern, whose husband Elisha fell in battle, leaving her to care for their 6 young children, including a baby, all on her own. Or consider Niora Swede, whose husband Bechor heroically fought terrorists with his bare hands near Gaza before losing his life. These IDF widows have lost everything. As they mourn their husbands, they're also struggling to meet basic needs without their family's provider. We cannot abandon them. Their husbands gave their lives to protect Israel and the free world from terror. We must now protect their families who have sacrificed so much. Every dollar raised goes towards essential expenses like food, utilities, and clothing. Please give generously. Click the link below to support the heroic widows and orphans of the fallen IDF soldiers. JD Vance also told the Jerusalem Post during his first ever visit to Israel in 2022, shortly after his Senate election, "I got it intellectually, but emotionally, I didn't realize Jerusalem is the most important cultural heritage site in the world. If Israel didn't control this land, I would never understand this experience." JD is also opposed to sending aid to Gaza, as explained in this interview he did with Face the Nation.
Well, first, Leader McConnell is right, of course, that there are a lot of innocent people in Gaza. We certainly don't want to cause any harm to them. We also have to be, again, reasonable about what we can accomplish. Who delivers the humanitarian assistance? Fundamentally, Hamas is in control of the entire territory. So if you deliver a large amount of humanitarian assistance, who's it going to go to? The children in Gaza or to the Hamas fighters on the front line?
Well,
I fear it's going to go to Hamas.
The Red Cross, all the international organizations who have been there and administering and, frankly, stepping up because the government has failed the Palestinian people, in the words of a lot of analysts on both sides of the aisle.
Stepping up, but I think there's still a lot of evidence with a lot of these international organizations that when we send aid into Gaza, a lot of it goes into the wrong hands. And that's what those of us who are critical of the president's posture are really worrying about. We don't want to basically fund two sides of the exact same conflict. Fund Hamas, fund Israel. Seems like a really bad deal for American taxpayers. Most of all, it's just stupid.
He also doesn't believe that strings should be attached for American support for Israel, also explained right here.
Well, certainly it's a troubling situation. It's a troubling situation, of course, because 1,500 Israelis were slaughtered by Hamas. I think what we have to have is some respect for our allies. They're not asking us to send ground troops. All they're asking us really is for weapons. And we should have some respect for their strategic imperative and also the fact that they know what they're doing within their own country. The goal here is not to have an unlimited response, here. The Israelis themselves, I think, have scoped the operation. They seem to be targeting a very narrow thing, which is degrading Hamas. I think we have to have some respect for our Israeli allies that they know what they're doing in their own country.
And yesterday, in an interview he did at the Republican National Convention, he had this to say about America's relationship with Israel and Iran.
But let me just say something about this Iran issue, because maybe the most important diplomatic breakthrough of the Trump administration was the Abraham Accords. If you want to check Iran, the way to do it is to, one, withdraw their oil money, which, of course, Joe Biden's been bad about. But you've also got to enable the Israelis and the Sunni Arab states to work together and actually provide a counterbalance to Iran. Joe Biden has done nothing. You have the infrastructure there, sitting there, to weaken Iran, to strengthen our ally Israel. Joe Biden's done nothing with it. Donald Trump would reinvigorate it.
He's also come out swinging really strong on anti-Semitism. He said, "America remains one of the great places to live if you are Jewish. The question now is how to reverse the negative trend of the last years." And he emphasized the importance of prosecuting anti-Semitic crimes to prevent further attacks. He said, "If you beat up a Jew and don't face consequences, the attacks will continue and get worse." With all that being said, on a broader level, with all the crazy events that have happened over the last couple of weeks since the Trump-Biden debate and the horrific circumstances of what happened this last weekend as well, it is possible, it may be possible that come November, Trump may be poised to win a landslide election of historic proportions. If so, if that does happen, with Trump's amazing record on Israel, and now with this new vice president pick of JD Vance, it's possible, God willing, brighter days may be ahead for the state of Israel and their relationship to the United States of America. Guys, don't forget to consider supporting Israel's widows of the fallen IDF soldiers that gave their lives for the state of Israel and for freedom. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening in Israel.
That was the great Ben Hilton, one of the Israel guys, with an excellent breakdown of JD Vance's position on Israel. Let's recap a few of the key points. JD Vance promotes a support for Israel based on the Christian identity of most Americans. I love this. For decades, the argument for support for Israel is focused on national security and geopolitical issues. During the Cold War, for example, when Israel's Arab neighbors were aligned with the Soviets, Israel served as a critical ally of the U.S., giving the Americans a trustworthy partner in the Middle East, which prevented the Soviets from taking over the region. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, the argument has shifted to Israel as a bulwark against Islamic terrorism and against the spread of Iranian influence. And then there's the technological and intelligence cooperation between Israel and the U.S., which is essential to U.S. interests. But here's the problem. If the relationship between Israel and America is based on shared geopolitical interests, well, geopolitical interests can change as the global chessboard changes over time. But if the U.S.-Israel relationship is based on the shared roots of the Jewish and Christian faiths, on shared values, there is a much healthier and more permanent relationship in place. And as for aid, I've said repeatedly that as a result of the aid, the U.S. has outsized influence in Israel's strategic decisions. The shenanigans of the Biden administration throughout the war with Hamas that we've documented on this show prove this point. More and more Israelis are realizing that it is in Israel's best interest to cut the cord and become much more self-sufficient. Senator Vance's vision is the right one, a relationship of equals, where America trusts its ally Israel to make its own decisions based on our shared faith and values. Thank you for watching Eyes on Israel.